It has been a roller coaster of emotions for Sixers fans for the past 24 hours, starting with the news of Joel Embiid tearing his meniscus or having a meniscus injury, as the tear has been walked back slightly by Shams Charania. We are expected to have more information on that this weekend as far as an exact timeline for how long Embiid will be out. But shortly following this news, there is the breaking news that Tyrese Maxey was named to an All-Star game for the first time in his young NBA career. The 23-year-old then went on to one-up himself and prove why he deserved to be every bit of an all-star by dropping 51 points and leading the Sixers to a victory over the Utah Jazz. I want to put in perspective just how special this performance was by Maxey and how much this changes things for the Sixers from a short-term and long-term span. So let's begin by diving right into it, and I'll start off with the score here. Sixers beating the Jazz 127 to 124. As you can see, Tyrese Maxey with 51 points, shot 17, and to dive into his stat line specifically, 7 of 9 from 3, 10 of 11 from the line, 0 turnovers on the day where he gets his first All-Star selection, the most points scored by a Sixer on the road in Utah in franchise history, an absolute star. And once again, to circle back, the Sixers needed every bit of it. A solid performance by Tobias Harris with 28 points and 7 assists, along with 5 rebounds there, but really no production outside of things. Kelly Oubre with 16 points. He got a little bit hot late in that game, was pretty inconsistent overall, but it was Maxey that stepped into center stage. And this was so important to do after the news of Joel, after the All-Star game, and it really felt like, I tweeted out during the game that Tyrese Maxey had no idea how bad Philadelphia needed to see this, but the more I digested it, I think he did. I think this was Tyrese Maxey sending a message that everybody relax, I can hold down the fort, we got this. That for all the doom and gloom for how bad these Sixers have been, let's not forget that Tyrese Maxey was also missing the past 3 games with the sprained ankle. And by the way, this sprained ankle, not 100% yet. They asked Maxey in the postgame how his ankle is, how was the rest. And he said that he was not quite up to 100% yet, but the second he heard that Joel was being shut down, he had to make sure that he was ready to suit up and play, and boy, did he look sharper than ever. That I do think that there is a real thing to him having this type of rest, refreshing his energy level. That Tyrese Maxey has led the league in minutes from start to finish this season, has seen that number. He's now right in the running with Luka Doncic for the top spot in the league, 38.5 minutes per game entering last night's game. But that's a lot to log on any guy. And Maxey's obviously young. He's obviously got a ton of energy. But the way that he moves, the rate that he runs, it's a lot on a guy. So I do think it was nice for him to be unplugged for a little bit, refresh his energy, rest up that ankle, and it clearly paid dividends. That he came out right from the opening tip yesterday. Scored 16 points in the first quarter, knocked down 4 3-pointers, looked sharper than ever, was doing it at all 3 levels. And just to put in perspective how special this stat line is once again 51 points, 7 of 9 from 3. He had 51 points on 27 shot attempts. And as far as it comes to the NBA overall, that Tyrese Maxey joins Kobe Bryant, Luka Doncic, Rashard Lewis as the only players in NBA history to have a 50-point game with 60% plus field goal percentage and 0 turnovers per stat head. And this obviously is league-wide, but within the Sixers organization, he put himself in some pretty impressive names as well. That Tyrese Maxey joins Joel Embiid, Wilt Chamberlain, and Allen Iverson as the only Sixers with multiple 50-point games in their Philadelphia careers. So Maxey obviously already scored 50 points once already this season, and then one update by dropping 51 in this matchup. And by the way, he could have had a chance to stat pad and add a couple down the stretch too. I do think they missed a couple fouls come crunch time, specifically when Maxey was kind of trying to dribble out the clock and the Jazz were fouling. He didn't get sent to the line on a couple that I definitely think they could have called, and not that that matters in the grand scheme of things. That 51 is impressive in itself, and the Sixers obviously got the win. But we very easily could be sitting up here talking about how he scored 53 or 55. Now, another point that I did want to bring up is the 0 turnovers. That the decision-making that he's able to make at this stage in his career is ridiculously impressive. That, no, he did not serve as the playmaker that we've seen him do for portion of the seasons. Frankly, they could not afford for that to be the case, that there weren't enough scoring options for him to set up, that Kelly Oubre did not have it going early on in that game. He did catch heat and hit a couple 3-pointers late in that game to make his stats look a lot better. Tobias Harris bully balled his way into 20-plus points by doing his thing, backing guys down. But there weren't really these options for Maxey to create for others. I thought it was a fairly poor game from both Paul Reed and Mo Bamba. Bamba ultimately played pretty well down the stretch, had a nice block and some other moments. But the bottom line is Maxey had to be in attack mode, and he answered that call. And that version of Tyrese Maxey is great to see. I think it still goes underappreciated just how great that Tyrese Maxey truly is. That looking at the growth in his game, the rate that he has improved as a player since coming to the NBA is really like no player I've ever seen. I genuinely believe that this is the most growth I've ever seen from a player from the start of his career within a 3-4 year period. That we're talking about the same guy who dropped in the NBA draft because he was not a good enough shooter. That him shooting 29% on three-pointers in college, flash forward 3 years into the NBA, and he's been a top 5 shooter on three-point percentage in 2 of those 3 seasons. That does not happen. And especially this year when we're seeing the growth in volume, still with a pretty impressive efficiency, it has slipped into his upper 30s for the first time really in his career. His rookie season, he didn't shoot the ball well either. I believe he's around 31% in his rookie season, but then over 40% the past 2 seasons, 42.3% I believe it was last year. That's ridiculous stuff. And now that he is throwing up an absurd number of volumes, still hitting at a very high efficiency number is really impressive. And frankly, the number of his percentage dipped on those few games leading up to him being ruled out with the ankle injury. I do think it was tired. I think it was tired legs, and that showed in his jump shot. We see guys short arms and hit front rims whenever things start to wear on him. I think that was the case with Maxey. And now that he's back and fresh and better than ever, he's back to being the lethal shooter that we know him to be. Now, to talk about like the big picture piece of this is obviously there is no Joel Embiid for the foreseeable future. And once again, that we will have a more concrete timeline laid out at some point this weekend. I'll be here to break things down and how that impacts things. Obviously, it's a different story on if Joel has a chance of returning the season, if he's out for the year, what exactly that time frame is. Those are pretty key factors as far as the decision-making process for how to manage this Sixers roster. But for now, Tyrese Maxey just stepped to center stage and said, I got this, that I can keep this franchise afloat. Now, I'm not saying that they need to rest on their laurels and do nothing. I absolutely want this team to still attack at the deadline and bring in win-now pieces. That if Joel Embiid is returning to the floor, you absolutely owe it to him, to the team, to the organization, to the fans, to everyone to go for winning a championship this year. That yes, history does not tell us that Joel Embiid will be healthy for a playoff run. But this could be the perfectly timed break to where he has this time off, he goes through the rehab process, gets his knee back up to 100%, and has just enough in his legs for this one playoff push. Now, by having Tyrese Maxey ready to step to center stage to continue to be the all-star that he's proving to be, this increases the chances drastically that the Sixers can stay afloat while Joel Embiid is not here. That in past years, it's been so night and day that when he's there, they're obviously a high-level contending team, and when he's hurt, that they frankly are not. And even with this season, I'm not going to overlook things, that I think this is likely not a playoff team if Joel Embiid is not on the floor on a night-to-night basis, that I think they're far closer to the lottery than they are actually having a chance at making a playoff run. But all they need to do is rip off a number of runs. That I do think it's overstated as a whole how important seeding is. That we've seen the Sixers team do this dance where they prioritize being the number 1 seed. And you know what happened that year? They lost to the Atlanta Hawks in the second round. We've seen them be the team that doesn't care about seeding, where they just float their way in. The bottom line is you have to beat whatever team is in front of you, and that does not matter if you're the 3 seed, the 6 seed, the 1 seed, or the 8 seed. That regardless, you have to play whoever's in front of you, and if you actually believe in yourself as a championship contending team, then you should be able to beat any single team in the NBA. That has to be the mindset by the Sixers, and especially with the Eastern Conference deeper than I've really ever seen it before. We're talking about obviously the Celtics, the Bucks, and the Sixers kind of as the top 3 teams there, and then looking below it, the New York Knicks, the hottest team in basketball right now, winning 8 in a row. Jalen Brunson playing at a fringe MVP level, the Indiana Pacers, the Miami Heat, the Cleveland Cavaliers, even the Orlando Magic I'll throw in the mix there. That there's a lot of talent. That is 8 teams right there that I think are all legitimate playoff teams. None of those are cakewalk matchups. So if the Sixers drop down to the 6th seed, that obviously I think it's a priority to stay above that play-in tournament, that you do want to make sure that you don't have to dog your way out and basically win the opportunity to play either the Bucks or the Celtics in a first-round matchup. But if you stay in that 6th seed, and you have to face either the Cavs or the Knicks in a first-round series, it's not great, but it's not the worst thing in the world. That shouldn't be a matchup where the Sixers have to do everything to avoid. So by Maxey having the ability to put this team on his back for just stretches at a time, just games here and there, that matters for staying afloat. That this team is not going to bottom out in the way that it has in past years and we've seen with the Sixers team. I'm not saying Tyrese Maxey is ready to fully accept the keys of the franchise and be that grade A number 1 star, although I do think that one day I will be saying that a couple years ahead, he is absolutely going to be ready to put that in his shoulders, and the fact that I can even confidently say that right now is a massive testament to the growth that he has shown. But at this point in time, if he can just have these games where he's able to lead this team to a victory, that there's enough stuff there, and there could still be reinforcements coming from a trade standpoint. So who knows where things go from here, but we should rest happy knowing that Tyrese Maxey is ready to step up. That he is young, he's still growing, he's still improving, but this dude is not afraid of the moment by any means. That he has answered every single call that has been asked from him throughout his Sixers career, and I cannot wait to see what the rest of the season has in store. It's going to be a blast to watch him at the All-Star game, to playing amongst the NBA's other elite, and cool to see him showcase what it would look like for him to headlight the team, whether that be in the short or long term. So once again, we will have more information out coming on Joel Embiid's status this weekend. I'll make sure I have a video breaking down all of that on the channel as well. But for now, we can rest easy knowing that at least Tyrese Maxey is here. Thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure you're smashing that subscribe button, dropping a like to this video, and let me know your comments. How's your vibe check on Tyrese Maxey, the Sixers as a whole, and the overall situation? Thank you guys for watching once again. I'll talk with you next time right here on Sixers Digest.